welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and I'm excited because I have Mike Concannon here, who I've been trying to sit down with, which feels like forever, and schedules don't always align. And so thank you so much, Mike, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we could make it work.
I'm really glad. And I have I want to start with a very basic question. So you are a city councilor at large.
Yes.
And I know technically what that means. You're not dedicated to a specific ward, but I don't know that I fully know that role and what that means for folks and how the community should be engaging you. So I'd love for you to just catch up. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Sure. Well, as you know, there are 7 wards in the city, and each ward is represented by an alderman, a city councilor. And then there are 2 at-large councilors to assist and kind of bolster and back up the role of the ward alderman. Each of the aldermen have a vote that counts the same. We all vote on all matters. Each ward alderman can weigh in on any issue in any ward. And again, as I said, I think the role of the alderman-at-large or city councilor at large is to bolster and back up the ward alderman with issues that may come up. Oftentimes, if there's a traffic problem or a plowing problem or a tree issue, folks will call their ward alderman first. But sometimes it's helpful to have another voice, and myself and Bob Ferrulo can weigh in on those as well to try to push the issue to resolution.
Awesome, thank you for that. So we shouldn't be shy about reaching out if we want to.
No.
It's also, I imagine, helpful too to have a couple of people who are on the city council who don't represent a specific ward. So sometimes, I mean, everybody cares about the city overall, but it's nice to have some folks who have a more broad perspective and their day-to-day.
Sure, that's a good way of putting it.
Awesome. So tell me, all that time ago when you decided you were going to get on city council, what was it that inspired you to do it?
Well, I'm a lifelong Woburnite, born at the Choate Hospital, born and raised here, went to Woburn schools, married a Woburn girl, my high school sweetheart.
Just be still my heart when people say that. I love that.
Anne-Marie Foley is her name. We've been married for coming up on 33 years.
Congratulations.
And thank you. So we settled down here, raised our family here, and I just feel like Woburn's been very good to me. And when I retired from the state police and I had time, I wanted to give back, and I felt like serving on the city council was a good way to do that.
Well, we're grateful that you decided that. So thanks for doing that. What are some of your favorite Woburn traditions, having been through here for quite some time, through different aspects of your life, growing up and getting married, having young family, and now?
Yeah. I think I heard Jeff Dillon say it a minute ago about the Woburn Lions Halloween Parade.
It's kind of hard not to love it, right?
I'm a member of the Lions Club, past president, and I've been in the club for 25 years. So not only did I get to enjoy it as a child, the parade, I also got to bring my family as they grew up. And now I get to play a role in putting the parade on, which is, as everyone knows, it's a great Woburn tradition. And it's just great to be a part of that and be able to contribute and raise money for Lions Eye Research, which is our #1 charity. And it's the reason for the parade, aside from the entertainment to the residents.
Besides entertaining all of us, right? Sure. I think it's wonderful. And I think most people have been to the parade who are in Woburn, but we have lots of new families. So if you haven't been, there are always wonderful people who are coming by, and they have big blue tarps, and they're coming by and they're collecting money for it. So if you come down to the parade and you don't normally do it, throw some money in your pocket. It's a great opportunity, an easy way to give back.
That's right. And every dollar that's raised along the route does go to Lions Eye Research, which is a great tradition. The Lions were founded more than 100 years ago, and they adopted site conservation and eye research as their #1 charity, and that's where that money goes. So we really appreciate all the support we get.
Yeah. Well, I love it. When my kids were little, they probably would be a little embarrassed by this, but like their favorite thing was when Nana, I always forgot to bring them up, Nana would like take money and get all ones so they could throw more in because it felt more important to them.
We definitely take ones. We definitely appreciate all the money we can get. We take ones, coins, 20s.
Right, you throw it in there, right? Throw a check in if you want to, right?
Absolutely.
That's definitely, that's awesome. Well, we're so grateful. The parade is a really great tuition. What other things stand out to you as things that you just love to participate in?
Well, I love the Horn Pond area, and back to Lions. When I was the president of the Lions Club, we were able to create Lions Park down there, which is near and dear to my heart. And I love the fact that Horn Pond is the crown jewel of Woburn, and it's enjoyed by so many residents. And I'm pleased that the Lions Club was able to contribute to that.
I've spent many an hour picnicking on Lions Park and enjoying with kids running around and
Sure.
biking in the circle there and just enjoying it. It's a beautiful
Absolutely.
area.
Yep.
That's great. I love it. This last year and a half has been, sort of unlike any other year in our city history because of the pandemic and all the things that had to adjust because of that. As you look beyond that and look towards where we're headed to and the opportunities ahead of us, what are some of the things that you're optimistic about focusing on in the next year or
Sure.
so?
Well, like everybody else, I am looking forward to get back to a sense of normalcy. I think the city has done a pretty good job of dealing with the pandemic. I applaud the efforts of the mayor and the Board of Health and others and the school department. I think it'll be great to get back to, as I say, a sense of normalcy for the school children and maybe help the businesses get back on their feet. As Jeff was saying a minute ago, many of them took a hit, and it'll be great to be able to go back to those businesses and participate and maybe help them get back on their feet and help so many of our fellow Woburnites.
Yeah.
I think we are heading out of the dark days now, and I look forward to aiding our businesses and our residents and getting back to a typical Woburn year.
Could not be more pleased that the Halloween parade falls on Halloween parade. I take that as an omen for amazing things are coming our way.
Sure,
right?
sure, I agree.
When we talk, I do think we all want to make sure that we support our businesses and there are real needs and opportunities there. What are some of the things that City Council can do to help support, making sure that they are stable financially and have people who can fill jobs and do all the things that are going to make those businesses thrive?
I think it's important that the City Council create an atmosphere where businesses can thrive in Woburn. Because of the location of Woburn, it's a great place to open a business. Just geography alone with the major intersections, the proximity to Boston. And I think Woburn wants to be welcoming to businesses because of the impact it has on our tax base, and it lessens the load of the residential taxpayer. So I think if we can create that type of climate that's welcoming and that there's a balanced approach to how we deal with business in the city, I think that's really important. And that is a big role of the City Council. We receive petitions for special permits for businesses to expand and to locate. And I think it's important that we give them all due consideration and see if it's a good fit here in Woburn. Because if it is, as I said, it will allow the tax base to grow and allow Woburn to provide the services that we're known for and people come to expect.
Let's talk about growth. So I think we on this show have spoken to a lot of people from a lot of different points of view about growth in the city, and I think generally speaking growth is a good thing, but with growth comes some not so great things, right? We've talked in the past about affordable housing, traffic, infrastructure needs that might change. One of the things that we know is we have some bigger developments that have been that are being built right now.
Sure.
And people worry about the impact that has in the city. In your role on City Council, what's your point of view on how we should look at these new projects as they come to us?
No, it's a good question, and it's something we talk about all the time. We struggle with every petition. The idea is we want to have balanced growth. As I said, the development and the moving forward is a good thing for any community. But we want to make sure we do it in a smart way and in a way that doesn't grow too quickly and out of control, and in a way that we can't maintain the essence of what is Woburn. There's a tremendous push towards more housing, and there's a push towards creating housing so that Woburnites can grow up in Woburn and continue to live here, buy their own place and maintain roots here in Woburn. Sometimes that's not always possible. Woburn's becoming very popular, the prices are increasing, and it's something we need to deal with. As to the role of government in that, I think government has a light hand approach on that. I don't think government should be dictating too much when it comes to housing stock, housing prices, things like that. Mm-hmm. What you've seen in the last few years is a lot of development, a lot of apartments being built. And I think that's with the best of intentions to try to ensure that there is a place for people to live in Woburn. I applaud that. There's a new model of live, work, play, where we can have folks live where they work and they can dine out in the same location. And I think there's some value to that. What I'm concerned about is having a situation where people live in Woburn but aren't really connected to the city. I don't think Woburn should be a place where you drive off the highway to your apartment from your job, wake up in the morning, get back on the highway and go to your job and not have roots and connections to the city. Because that's not what Woburn is. It's never been that. That's what I'm most concerned about.
Okay.
I'm concerned about trying to satisfy the desire to create housing, but perhaps slow down the rate, limit the density, and try to find other ways to increase housing without becoming simply an apartment community.
So over the last few years, since I've been paying attention, I've been here a long time, since I've really been paying attention, we've done some big infrastructure projects. We've rebuilt the high school and a number of other schools in our city. We renovated the library extensively, which is just absolutely beautiful and gorgeous.
Yep.
And we are now rebuilding the fire headquarters.
Correct.
I know we probably can't always have a big next thing happening, but we probably do have the next big things happening. How would you prioritize those kinds of big infrastructure and projects for the city?
Sure, that's a good question. There was a study 15, 20 years ago about trying to improve the schools. And one of the goals was parity, to ensure that every neighborhood in the city had access to the same quality schools, same quality physical infrastructure of the schools. And we've done a great job. The high school is a beautiful example, as are all the other schools you see in town. We have a beautiful school right near me, the new Harold Wyman. It's fabulous.
That's nice.
Next up, I think, is the Alta Vista Linscott area.
Okay.
Up in North Woburn, they've waited their turn for a long time.
They have indeed.
And I think that should be the next project that the city seeks out. Obviously, we need MSBA funding on that. We need to get in line. I think, in talking with the mayor and others, I think there is the intention to get in line.
Okay.
The fire station maybe cut in front of that in the short term, but I do think there is consensus to push forward with the new Alta Vista Linscott and seek the MSB funding that we'll need in order to complete it.
That sounds great. And what about our middle schools? I know the middle schools have sort of felt, in some cases, a little caught in between those two things. Maybe they're adequate, maybe they're not. They're certainly old buildings. I can't say that means just because it's an old building doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be replaced. What's your point of view on that?
Yeah, I went to the Kennedy and I've spent a lot of time at the Joyce, and I can tell you they're both in need of
The Kennedy
work.
probably looks the same when my kids went as perhaps when you went.
Yes, essentially it does.
I don't think it's changed much.
I think that I would put the Alta Vista Linscott first, and then I would immediately turn to a middle school plan. And I've talked with the superintendent about this informally. Would the plan be to have 2 renovated middle schools like we have now? Or should we perhaps consider a consolidation? And maybe that's the more effective and efficient way to go. And I know he's got that on his radar. So I guess I would say that, if we can get through the fire station and we can move forward with that Alta Vista Linscott plan, that should be the next thing we look at.
I know the Alta Vista Linscott families will be very happy to hear that.
As I said,
they've
waited patiently. It's been about 20 years since we began this process, and it's time. It's due.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, thank you for sharing your point of view on that. I think those are important infrastructure projects. One of the things that growth may do is it may give us an opportunity to do some redistricting, which affects how schools are, it affects a whole bunch of things, about things like busing and transportation and things like that. Is that something that's on our radar, or do we feel that right now where we're measured, we probably won't need to?
I think it's more the purview of the school department, school administration, and the school committee. But I do know that it's on their radar. They are aware of the need to make sure that there's reasonably similar populations in each of the elementary schools and the middle schools. It is a touchy subject. A lot of families have lived in the same neighborhood for a long time. Their siblings, have gone to the school. They feel connected to that school. They really don't want to be redistricted out. But I do think it's an important question, especially if the numbers start to get out of whack. And that's not fair to one, school district versus another. So I do know that they've talked about it. I don't know that there's any tangible action in the near future.
Yeah, it might be premature to do that until some of those developments are completed and
Yep.
we see how many families and such move in. And I know when we did the combined Harold-Wyman, when it was built, there were some people who had to move
Yes.
their schools.
Yep.
And there were some good things that came from it, but it's a tough transition.
Sure.
It wasn't always
And,
easy.
and it happened with the clap
Yes.
and the Goodyear.
Yeah.
And you know, they make it work. There's
Yeah.
some bumps occasionally. But I do think it's something that should be looked at. And to your point, when the rest of these developments and these new houses come online, we may be forced to look at quicker than
Yeah.
we think.
We'll let the community, needs are what's going to drive us. That's great.
Yeah.
One of the other things I want to talk about Woburn Rec. So Woburn Rec does a lot of things in our city, probably more things than most of us realize. They have the purview of doing. They had to do somewhat of a hiatus last year as physical in-person things. They're back on track, but it is a pretty. I don't want to use the word underfunded because that implies a judgment, but it has a low funding base for the Woburn Rec Department today when we look at some of the cities around us and some of the programming that they do. Are there other parts of our city that sort of fill in those gaps that might create, or is there an opportunity to grow the rec over time?
I think both. Okay. I think Woburn has a strong youth sports, programming. Between hockey and basketball and soccer and football, there are a lot of opportunities for Woburn youngsters to be active. And that's a great thing. My kids participated in every sport known to man.
I'm tired for you thinking of that.
Yeah, I had 4 boys who played hockey for about 15 years each.
Did you ever sleep, like once?
It was a long haul. We enjoyed every minute of it, but I think I've been in every rink in New England.
I imagine.
And they and my daughter have played all sorts of sports. And I think Woburn offers a tremendous amount. And I think the recreation department works hand in hand with those youth sports programs. So they're not competing, they're not duplicating, they're complementary.
Yep.
And I think Rory Lindstrom and her team, they do a great job offering all sorts of programs, and it's not just sporting.
Yep.
There's drama, there's arts and crafts, there's all sorts of things. And I know that they're very receptive to hearing from folks on new programs.
Yep. I was spoiled. In the winter, a few folks had suggested we do a snowshoe lending program, and I called Rory and I said, guess what? We're going to do a snowshoe lending program.
Yeah.
And we raised money and we bought the snowshoes, and she was great. She was super easy to work with and set it up, and families started using them right away.
I've heard a lot of those stories where somebody has an idea and they go to Rory, and soon enough it gets implemented. And as I say, I think we can always probably give a little bit more to the programming there, and I'm sure Rory would accept it gladly.
I'm sure she would.
But all in all, the way that they work with the other programs in town, I think Woburn youth have a whole lot of opportunities, and I think it's a great place to be a kid and to have kids.
Yeah, I agree. And just in fairness, the Woburn Rec programs don't only serve youth in our community. They do have programming for adult programming and things. I've taken a couple of the I think some yoga classes I've seen there. I actually took a smoothie class when my son was little. We took it together, and it was an attempt to make better, healthier eating choices. We had a really good time. I don't know that it affected his better eating choices.
Well, I know that one of the new things they've done in response to adult interest is pickleball.
Yes, I've seen a lot of that lately.
I've seen it all over the place, never played it before. It's
I was going to say, do you actually know what pickleball is? Because I have to admit my ignorance. I don't.
I've watched them play.
So how do you play pickleball?
It's like tennis.
Okay.
With a ball that doesn't travel as quick or as far.
That's my kind of speed.
Kind of a smaller court.
Okay.
People of all ages apparently can play it. And every time I drive by the Library Park court, there's somebody playing.
I love it.
And I know that it was driven by interest, and the rec department listened, which is great.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. That's a great example of something that I've heard a lot about. I haven't actually seen it played, but now I have to go watch it.
Yeah, it's cool to watch. I haven't played it yet, though.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you're right, I do see lots of people of different ages participating in it. So that's awesome. So I know the Woburn community knows you incredibly well, but there's got to be a few things we maybe would be surprised to learn about you. Tell us something that we might not already know.
Like you said, I've been here a long time, and I have a lot of connections to Woburn. My kids know just about everybody, so I think A lot of people know me and my family pretty well. Something that,
Maybe a secret ambition.
not so much an ambition, what I was going to mention was, maybe a lot of people don't know that when I was 12 years old, my father died. And my mother raised me and my siblings, and she was a stay-at-home mom. And she went back to work, and she worked for the Veterans Department here in Woburn.
I did not know that.
And she is wonderful. She's my hero. And I attribute a lot of my desire to serve the public to what I saw. And I've told this story before, but I'm always impressed when I think back to how my mother treated the veterans. My dad had been a veteran of the Korean War. And I was in my mother's office quite a bit growing up, and then later on as an adult. I'd be at the courthouse next door as a trooper, and I'd stop over and say hi to Mom. And I was always impressed with how she treated those veterans. She fought to make sure that they got everything they were entitled to. She treated them with dignity and professionalism. And I say to people all the time, if I could serve 1/10 the number of people my mother served and 1/10 as good a way, I'd call myself, successful. So maybe a lot of people don't know that, but I tremendous respect for my mother, the person she is, and how much she's contributed to this community.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank goodness for your mother. She's done some really great work. They just had the Veterans Blues Festival fundraiser over
right
the
outside
weekend.
her window.
Yes,
She's at Library Park, and
she
loves all the
hear,
activity out
right?
there.
I love it. My mom was helping at one of the entrances with the tickets
great.
and stuff, and I could hear it while I was on the patio. It's a great organization, and they do some really good work.
Great event here in Woburn. I think what Woburn offers is, I'd say, second to none. When you look at all the services you can get in Woburn, and the low tax rate, and just the community feel here, it is a town that's growing to be a city, and I think there's no better place to be and to raise a family. And if you started listing all the things you can get, I think you'd run out of paper. It's just such an incredible place.
We do have a lot, and I've lived here now for a little over 25 years, and it's been remarkable to watch the city change and morph, but still have an pretty incredible character and neighborhood families. I say hanging out together, and kids enjoying each other, and local officials who are accessible like yourself. And I'm deeply grateful for the ability to sit down and have a conversation with you, and that you make the time to do that. So I really appreciate it. I know that it is not trivial. Darlene told me a story about having to go out in the middle of the night of her pajamas with a coat over her to go address an issue that was in the city. I hope you haven't had to go out in your pajamas.
I can't say that I have.
Hopefully that is the exception. But it is a lot of work. So for those folks who want to stay in touch with you or reach out to you about anything, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can check the city website. My email address is on there. I go by my old AOL email address.
You're aging yourself with that one.
It's mpcesq@aol.com. I've got an office number, 781-281-1054, and I have my cell phone with me 24/7. It can always be reached at 508-958-2234, and if you call me, I will call you back.
Right, thank you. And I am very appreciative to hear that I hear over and over again how true that is. People don't always like what they hear, but people respond and are in touch and caring and compassionate about our city, and we're really fortunate to have that. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been incredible, and thank you as always, Woburn. Please continue to take good care of each other.